Imagine yourself lying beneath a velvet sky, the air thick with the scent of distant rain and jungle earth. You're deep in Mesoamerica, where time once moved in circles, not lines, and the stars are not just beautiful. They were guides, gods, and storytellers. Tonight's soft-spoken tale is a gentle drift through one of the world's most fascinating civilizations, the ancient Maya. Together, we'll explore their rise and quiet fall, their whispered prophecies, and their mysterious bond with the heavens above. This is history meant to help you sleep. Not with excitement, but with the rhythmic unfolding of time, like waves lapping softly against stone temples hidden in the trees. If this kind of storytelling helps you find rest, feel free to like the video and subscribe to Sleepy Historian, but only if it truly brings you peace. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. There's something oddly comforting about knowing others are out there, falling asleep to the same stories. You found a space where boring history for sleep is not just a promise. It's a gentle art. We'll move slowly, with soft footsteps, from one era to the next. There will be no battles shouted, no urgent drums. Only the soft echoes of past lives and the silent language of the stars. This is calm bedtime storytelling, a soft-spoken history documentary, a history sleep story for fans of archaeology, ancient astronomy, and gentle narration. So dim the lights, let the fireflies flicker, let the stars of the ancient Maya align once again, and let's begin. Imagine the slow rustling of leaves in a humid dawn, somewhere deep in the lush jungles of Mesoamerica, where today vines wrap quietly around ancient stone. Life once bustled with a different rhythm. The Maya did not live hurried lives. Their days unfolded like the scrolls they carved in stone, measured, ceremonial, deliberate. The Maya civilization emerged long before bustling highways or crowded cities. Their roots stretch as far back as 2000 BCE, eventually blooming into a sprawling network of city-states across what we now call Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. Now, picture the quiet awakening of one such Maya city, perhaps Tikal or Copan. Thatched homes clustered near massive stone pyramids. Parrots flit overhead. Smoke rises slowly from hearths. The soundscape isn't one of shouting or bells, but soft chants, footsteps on stone, and the rhythmic sound of maize being ground by hand. These were people of the earth and sky. Their connection to both was not symbolic. It was sacred and functional. The jungle around them was not wilderness. It was a living, divine library where every tree and animal had meaning. They farmed its edges, built stone structures with sacred geometry, and aligned their entire lives to the seasons, the sun, and the stars. Their rulers were more than kings. They were divine intermediaries. Their authority was reinforced by ceremony, calendar, and the power of stories carved into stele. A ruler might rise with the sun, perform offerings, oversee laborers building a temple, and later consult a priest interpreting omens from Venus or Mars. Every motion meant something. The Maya did not move without meaning, and yet their cities, so advanced, had no beasts of burden, no wheels for transport. Instead, everything was carried. Water in jars, maize in baskets, stones on backs. The rhythm of their lives was one of quiet endurance. Labor, yes, but sacred labor. A path walked by ancestors, blessed by gods, guided by stars. In the plazas, scribes inscribed glyphs onto bark paper codices or etched them into limestone. Each curve told a story, mythic or mundane. Each dot a number. Each image a link in a vast web of knowledge passed down without interruption for centuries. These cities, Karakol, Uxmal, Calakmul, were not ruled from a single seat. The Maya world was made up of dozens of city-states, sometimes allied, sometimes warring, but always connected through trade, bloodlines, and a shared reverence for time itself. Their agriculture was equally refined. They terraced hillsides, built raised fields above swamps, and rotated crops not just by soil need but by celestial alignment. Maize, beans, squash, and chili, the Mesoamerican quartet, fed not only the body but the spirit. Feasts were tied to solstices. Harvests were stories retold through dance, offering, and ritual smoke. And in the heart of each city stood the temple, not a place of stillness, but one of layered sound, flutes chanting drums. These pyramids weren't tombs. They were stairways to the stars, calibrated carefully to frame equinoxes or signal the setting of Venus. The sky was not a background. It was a map. They didn't just watch the heavens. They built with them. Imagine walking slowly through such a city. The air thick, the sun filtering through towering saber trees. A high priest passes in jade and feathers. Children chase dogs near a stepped pyramid. A woman carefully presses tortillas near her home. Life moves gently, like water down a carved channel, always flowing, always cyclical. There is no rush in the Maya world, only rhythm. And as we continue this soft journey, we'll begin to understand just how much their world was ruled not by force, but by the turning of stars, the alignment of planets, and a deep, abiding reverence for structure, time itself. Let's continue. Imagine standing at the base of a towering pyramid. The morning sun filters through the jungle canopy, lighting the weathered steps with golden warmth. Insects hum softly. The stone beneath your hand is cool, worn smooth by centuries of ritual touch. This is not just a building. This is a living calendar, a voice from the past. Maya architecture was not simply practical. It was profoundly symbolic. Their pyramids, plazas, and palaces were designed with purpose, aligned with celestial events, and often layered over earlier structures like a spiral of sacred history. The cities breathed in cycles, just like the universe they believed in. Temples were built to ascend, physically, yes, but also spiritually. The steps were steep, forcing climbers to move slowly, humbly, as if approaching the divine. From atop, priests observed the stars, performed rituals, and addressed their people. Below, crowds gathered in silence or song, the sound rising like smoke. Every major city, Tikal, Palenque, Calakmul, feature ceremonial core, often laid out with remarkable precision. Temples face specific points on the horizon. Ball courts nestle between shrines. Sacred cenotes, natural wells, dotted the landscape like mirrors to the underworld. And then there were the stelae, tall, slender stone monuments placed carefully in temple courtyards. These were not merely decorative. They were records, stories carved into limestone, chronicling victories, births, eclipses, deaths, and dynastic dreams. Each glyph a word, each curve a whisper. The Maya didn't just tell stories. They etched them into time. Their writing system was among the most complex of the ancient world. A mixture of logograms and phonetic symbols, it allowed them to record history, cosmology, poetry, and tribute. These glyphs appeared on stelae, staircases, pottery, murals, and codices made from bark paper coated in white lime. The glyphs looked dense, even dizzying. But to the Maya, they were fluid, expressive. A single block might tell of a king's accession, a celestial omen, and a tribute offering, all in elegant curves and dots, often accompanied by images of rulers seated on thrones, gods descending, or serpents unfurling from the mouth of ancestors. Their script was not static. It danced, twisting, flowing, interacting with the art around it. Some scribes favored vertical columns, others circular arrangements that mimicked the cycles of time. And unlike many ancient scripts, a significant portion of the Maya glyphs have been deciphered, giving modern scholars a window into a world both mysterious and vivid. Imagine a scribe sitting cross-legged beneath a thatched awning. He dips a reed brush into black ink, his bark paper codex open before him. His movements are slow, practiced. Around him, incense curls upward. Nearby, A stone worker chips patiently at a glyph-strewn steel, the sound a gentle tap, tap, tap. Each line they inscribe is not just for their time. It is for the stars, for the ancestors, and, perhaps unknowingly, for us. But these stones and scripts were not for everyone. Literacy was often confined to elites. Priests, scribes, nobles. Commoners knew the symbols through rituals and oral stories, but they did not write. They remembered. Still, the architecture told its own story. A pyramid's height revealed the power of its patron. A ball court spoke of ritual sacrifice and cosmic games. The orientation of buildings whispered of solstices, equinoxes, and planetary risings. And the scale, the sheer scale. Some pyramids rose over 70 meters tall, constructed without metal tools, without wheels, without draft animals. Just hands, organized labor, ceremony, and time. Their cities, viewed from above, seemed to echo the constellations they studied. As below, so above. Every stone laid was a form of devotion. Every step climbed, a passage between worlds. Let the stones speak. Let the glyphs whisper. And let us move gently onward, deeper into the Maya understanding of time and the stars. Imagine a world where time is not a straight line, but gentle wheel turning endlessly through the ages. To the Maya, time was alive, sacred, repeating, and divine. It was a force to be read, interpreted, and honored, not merely measured. It shaped every decision, from planting crops to crowning kings. The Maya didn't just track days. They listened to them. Their system of timekeeping was breathtakingly intricate. In fact, they didn't use just one calendar. They used several simultaneously. Each tracked a different aspect of the world, like layers of melody playing in harmony. The Tsoken, or Sacred Round, was a 260-day cycle. It had 20 named days and 13 numbers, rotating together like interlocking gears. Each combination, like 4-can or 7-ets nab, had its own meaning, its own personality. A child born on 8-ben might grow to be a traveler or a weaver of stories. The Tsoken was used to guide rituals, divinations, and naming ceremonies. Then there was a Hab, the solar calendar. It spanned 365 days, divided into 18 months of 20 days, plus a short, mysterious month of 5 nameless days called Wayeb. These days were considered unstable, a time for quiet, for caution, no weddings, no great decisions, just reflection. But the most complex and mysterious of all was a long count, a calendar that could track vast stretches of time, stretching back to the mythical beginning of this current world. August 11th, 3114 BCE, in our modern calendar. Dates in the long count were recorded in units called backtons, katuns, tons, winals, and kains, each stacking upon the other, like time built into a pyramid. It wasn't just a measure, it was a monument. Imagine a Maya priest unrolling a bark paper codex, fingers tracing symbols that mark a solar eclipse from 3 centuries ago. To them, that event still echoed. It wasn't just history, it was part of the present. Time folded in on itself. Monuments were often dated using all 3 calendars at once, like a chord struck in time. A stela might read, on 9.1 3.0.0.0, 1 3 zip, a moment in time fixed not by memory, but by mathematics and mythology. To modern minds, this complexity is staggering. But to the Maya, it offered balance, predictability, and a profound sense of connection. Life wasn't random. It was woven into a great cosmic pattern, set in motion by the gods, interpreted by priests and followed by all. And then there was the end. Much has been said about the Maya prophecy that the world would end in 2012, but the truth is far more nuanced and far more beautiful. December 21st, 2012, marked the completion of the 13th Bacton in the long count calendar. It was not the end of time, but the end of an era. For the Maya, this date was a reset, a turning of the great wheel. Just as the sun rises each morning, so too do ages begin anew. It was a time of renewal, not doom. The world didn't collapse. It breathed in, then exhaled. And in that breath, their view of time teaches us something deeply calming, that we're not running out of time. We are simply moving through it gently in cycles. Even now, modern Maya communities still honor these calendars. Elders mark days with quiet ceremonies, candles flickering in remote highland villages, offerings of maize and cacao, whispered prayers, and silent meditations continue the rhythm that began thousands of years ago. As we close this part of our journey, let the calendar gently tick on. Let the cycles wrap around you like a warm blanket. And let the Maya remind you, time is not a race. It's a sacred rhythm. Listen closely, and you might still hear it. Imagine yourself lying beneath a velvet sky. The air warm and still, the jungle quiet except for the gentle calls of night birds and the distant rustle of trees. Above, the stars glimmer, not just as points of light, but as guides, gods, and guardians. For the ancient Maya, this was not just the sky. It was a living calendar, a sacred clock, and a cosmic map. The Maya believed the heavens were deeply connected to the earth below. Every movement in the sky echoed in the rhythms of crops, kings, and creation myths. Astronomy was not a separate science. It was part of life itself. At the heart of Maya astronomy were the celestial bodies, particularly the sun, moon, and Venus. The Maya didn't simply observe these objects. They watched them, recorded them, aligned their buildings to them, and wove their appearances into the stories of gods and ancestors. The sun was seen as a divine being, traveling across the sky by day and through the underworld by night. Many temples and pyramids were aligned with the solstices and equinoxes, days of balance when the sun marked the changing of seasons. On these days, shadows would fall in precise shapes. At Chichen Itza, for instance, a serpent of shadow would slither down the side of the Great Pyramid during the equinoxes. It was not an accident. It was architecture built with the stars in mind. The moon, too, held powerful significance, often linked to the feminine, with fertility, with cycles of time. Lunar eclipses were watched carefully, interpreted by priests, and often predicted with remarkable accuracy. The Maya used a lunar series in their calendar inscriptions, mathematical notations that tracked the moon's phases and positions. And then there was Venus, perhaps the most important celestial object to the Maya after the sun. They called it the Great Star and associated it with the god Kukulkan or Quetzalcoatl in later mythology. Venus's appearance as a morning star or evening star was thought to signal critical moments, time for warfare, for ceremony, for sacrifice. Priests kept detailed records of Venus's cycle, which lasts approximately 584 days. These records appear in surviving Maya codices, particularly the Dresden Codex, which contains an astonishing Venus table used to predict its risings and settings over many years. Imagine a Maya astronomer, his head shaved in front, wearing a jaguar pelt robe, standing atop a temple platform. He gazes west at twilight, waiting for Venus to reappear. He marks it down with ink on bark paper. His observations are quiet, precise. Around him, the night deepens. A ritual may soon follow. Astronomy shaped agriculture as well. The planting and harvesting of maize was often timed with the position of constellations. Farmers knew the night sky as well as they knew the earth. When certain stars rose before dawn, it was time to sow. When others vanished behind the sun, it was time to reap. Observatories were built into temples. Some had windows or doorways precisely aligned to frame a star or a sunrise on a specific day. These buildings were not merely functional. They were sacred. The cosmos was not something distant. It was invited in, honored, and mirrored on Earth. Their constellations were not always the same as ours. While we see a scorpion, the Maya might have seen a turtle. Where we see Orion, they might have seen a celestial hearth. But the meaning behind the shapes was always the same: connection, guidance, memory. And these observations weren't just for the elite. Though priests and scribes kept the formal records, stories of the stars were passed down through oral tradition. A grandmother might tell her grandchildren when to expect rain based on the moon. A father might point to Venus and whisper a tale of a serpent god who returns with light. Time, space, and story all braided together. To drift among the stars in the Maya world was to be held within a vast, sacred pattern, a place where nothing was random, where the night sky whispered not chaos, but careful design. It was a comfort, a reassurance that everything had its place. So as you lie here now, eyes closed, imagining a sky untouched by city lights, let the stars guide you. Let their ancient rhythms remind you. The universe, like sleep, has its patterns, and you are gently part of them. Imagine, once more, that you are standing on the summit of a Maya temple. The wind brushes gently past your face, and the sky stretches above you in endless indigo. In the distance, the sun is setting beyond the jungle, and the first stars begin to peek through the fading light. Now picture the people who stood here before you, centuries ago, holding polished stones, bark paper scrolls, and knowledge passed down from generations. They are not just watching the sky, they are measuring it. The Maya were not merely observers of the heavens, they were engineers of time. They achieved their astonishing astronomical accuracy using surprisingly simple tools, crafted not from glass or metal, but from observation, patience, and geometry. One of their most fundamental tools was a gnomon, a vertical stick planted in the ground. As the sun moved across the sky, its shadow told the time of day and the time of year. By tracking these shadows daily, they could identify solstices and equinoxes, measure the angle of the sun, and even predict the movement of constellations over time. There was no need for telescopes. The sky itself and its patterns were their instruments. And then there were the codices, folded books made of bark paper, coated with lime to create a smooth writing surface. Only 4 Maya codices are known to survive today: the Dresden, Madrid, Paris, and Grolier codices. Of these, the Dresden Codex is the most famous. It is an astronomical masterpiece, a quiet manuscript filled with glyphs, numbers, and celestial predictions. Across its painted pages, Venus dances in careful cycles. Eclipses are foretold. Ritual dates are marked with care. Imagine a priest unrolling the codex slowly in the flickering light of a torch, lips moving silently as he reads the stars. These books were sacred. They were not casual writings, but divine blueprints of the cosmos. Only trained scribes and astronomer priests could understand them, and they were often kept in temples or elite households, guarded as treasures of both knowledge and spirit. But the Maya did not rely solely on paper. They built observatories, structures carefully aligned to celestial events. One of the most remarkable examples is found at Uxmal in the Yucatan. The Pyramid of the Magician, a unique oval-shaped pyramid with entrances aligned to track Venus. Another sits at Chichen Itza, a circular tower known today as El Caracol or the Snail. From the outside, El Caracol resembles a simple tower, but its window slits and doors are aligned to capture the light of celestial events. Through these openings, priests could witness the setting sun during solstices, the rising of Venus, and other key occurrences. It was more than a building. It was a telescope of stone. Inside these observatories, observations were recorded in ritual cycles. A Venus appearance might signal the start of a military campaign. A lunar eclipse might prompt a cleansing ceremony. Every heavenly event was mirrored on Earth. And here is something to imagine: a young Maya apprentice, barely past childhood, sitting beside his master. He holds a bowl of ink and a bone stylus. Overhead, the stars shift slowly. His master nods and points toward the horizon, explaining which movement signals the end of the current cycle. The boy listens carefully. This is not just training, it is inheritance. The tools of knowledge were not made from bronze or iron. They were made from light, patience, and stories. And those stories, preserved in glyphs in stone and memory, still speak. When Spanish invaders arrived, many codices were destroyed. Fire consumed centuries of celestial wisdom. But not all was lost. The stars, of course, remained unburnable, unbroken. And in modern times, scholars have begun to decode these patterns anew. Today, researchers use digital simulations, satellite imagery, and modern astronomy to verify Maya calculations. The accuracy of their Venus cycle, for example, is within a day of modern predictions. Their calendars still amaze. Their structures still align with the solstice sun. And perhaps most remarkably, Maya communities still observe traditional rituals based on these cycles. The rhythm never stopped. It simply softened. So, as you listen, let yourself imagine a codex gently unfolding, a temple aligned with the sky, a people who built their cities not just to live in, but to dream in harmony with the stars. Imagine a time when numbers were not only practical, but sacred, where mathematics was not merely a tool for trade or taxation, but a key to understanding the gods and the stars. For the ancient Maya, math was inseparable from the heavens. Their calculations, etched into stone and painted on codices, were used not only to count, but to predict, to plan, and to prophesy. At the heart of their celestial system was a calendar, not one, but several, interwoven, like the strands of a hammock, forming a cosmic net around time itself. The Maya used at least three major calendars, the Tzolk'in, the Hab, and the Long Count. Each served a purpose. Each marked different rhythms of existence, ritual, agricultural, cosmic. The Tzolk'in was a sacred calendar, a 260-day cycle made up of 20 named days and 13 numbers, rotating together like gears. This calendar didn't align with the solar year, but it marked the spiritual flow of time. Priests used it to determine auspicious days for ceremonies, naming children, planting, and war. The Hab was the solar calendar, comprising 18 months of 20 days each, followed by a short, 5-day period called Wayeb, which was considered unlucky or liminal, a time when the boundary between worlds grew thin. Together, these two calendars formed the calendar round, a 52-year cycle before their dates repeated. Imagine precision. Every 18,980 days, just over 52 solar years, the Tzolk'in and Hab would align again, like celestial gears resetting. But it was a long count that truly stretched toward the stars. This was the Maya's way of recording vast stretches of time, beginning from a mythical creation date, August 11th, 3114 BCE. In our modern Gregorian system, dates were recorded in units like baktons, 144,000 days, katuns, tons, and kins. Their system was vigesimal, base 20, but with unique adaptations. Using the long count, Maya scribes could trace time not just over years or decades, but over millennia. And then there was a famous end date, December 21st, 2012, which marked the completion of the 13th Baktan, a major cycle. Contrary to modern misinterpretations, this was not an apocalyptic prophecy. The Maya didn't predict the end of the world. It was simply the turning of a page, a new cycle, a new beginning. Imagine the care it took to track time so faithfully. No digital clocks, no printed calendars, just stone, sun, and memory, and mathematics. The Maya developed place value, zero, and complex numerical systems long before many other civilizations. Their glyphs used dots for 1, bars for 5, and a shell symbol for 0, a concept rarely understood in ancient times, but critical for their vast calculations. Now, imagine a stone stela, rising in a jungle clearing. It's tall, weathered, but the glyphs are still legible. A modern archaeologist kneels beside it, running her fingers over the carved numbers. They tell the date of a long-past ruler's coronation, maybe 9.16.4.10.8, in long count notation. That translates, roughly, to a moment in the 8th century CE. A day celebrated with drums, incense, and offerings all aligned with the stars above. In their sacred math, the Maya found patterns. In their calendars, they found meaning. Each cycle of days, of seasons, of suns reflected the eternal rhythm of life and death, growth and decay. To the Maya, time was not linear. It was cyclical. It curled like a serpent, coiling endlessly to the past and into the future. And in this great spiral, each day was connected to another, to those before and those yet to come. Imagine a priest consulting a codex before a great ritual. He finds a correct soak-in day. It aligns with a Hob date. The long count is noted in glyphs. All is in order. The ritual begins not because the sun rises, but because time itself has opened a door. And through these doors, the Maya pass, generation after generation, guided by their sacred numbers, by their cosmic math, and by the quiet certainty that they were in tune with the universe. Let this thought settle as you rest. That time itself once moved more slowly. That was counted not by seconds, but by sacred days. That in a world of stone and stars, mathematics was a kind of prayer. And in that prayer, even now there is peace. Imagine sitting by a quiet fire in the heart of Maya City, long after the rituals have ended and the crowds have gone. The stars twinkle overhead in thick clusters, and the sound of the jungle hums in the distance, unseen but constant. Near the flames, a storyteller begins to speak. Not hurriedly, not loudly, but with the soft rhythm of someone reciting ancient truths. You lean in. The stories, he says, are not just for remembering. They are for predicting. For the Maya, time and prophecy were inseparably intertwined. The heavens told stories, and those stories whispered of what was to come. Their understanding of time, as we've seen, was cyclical. And within these cycles, certain events repeated: wars, droughts, harvests, eclipses. The Maya believed that by understanding these patterns, one could foresee echoes of the future. At the heart of this belief was the idea of destiny woven through time, guided by the gods. Each day on the Tsokin calendar had a specific energy, influenced by the gods it was associated with. A child born on a certain day was thought to carry that day's essence, the temperament of the deity ruling that number and name. Entire lifetimes could be charted in this way. Priests and astrologers were consulted not only for rituals, but for births, marriages, and even planting seasons. Imagine a young woman seeking counsel before her wedding. A priest unfurls a scroll or codex, studying the Tsokin, whispering dates and names. He finds the intersection of two sacred symbols and declares it favorable. Not just a day, but a destiny. But beyond the personal, there were grander prophecies, civilizational cycles said to rise and fall according to the stars. One of the most powerful celestial influences in Maya thought was Venus, associated with war, renewal, and divine timing. Venus's appearances and disappearances from the sky marked moments of profound spiritual and political consequence. A war might begin at Venus's rising. A king might be crowned at its return. Their codices and carvings show eclipse tables, Venus cycles, and alignments with the Milky Way, not just as charts, but as living predictions. The night sky was a divine manuscript. One of the most enduring aspects of Maya prophecy centers around the 2012 phenomenon, a moment misunderstood in popular culture as the end of the world. In truth, this belief came from the end of the 13th Bacton in the long count calendar. A significant moment, yes, but not an apocalypse. To the Maya, it marked the close of one era and the beginning of another, just as midnight ends a day and begins a new one. Some steely, such as the one at Tortuguero, hint at future cycles, speaking of the return of gods after the 13th Bacton. But the tone is not one of doom. It is one of renewal, of time beginning again, just as it always had. This idea, the eternal turning of sacred time, was more comforting than ominous. The gods were not ending the world. They were reshaping it, as they had many times before. To the Maya, prophecy was a map, not fixed but flowing, not a rigid fate, but a rhythmic forecast, a tide of possibilities. One had to understand the patterns, listen to the whispers, and know when to act. And in this, prophecy became an act of listening. Even today, Maya descendants in Guatemala, Belize, and southern Mexico still consult daykeepers, elders trained in interpreting the Tzolk'in calendar. They speak the same languages, observe the same days, and carry on the whispers of their ancestors. The prophecies never ended. They simply softened into the rhythm of daily life. As you listen now, imagine the stars above you moving slowly, their paths winding into new shapes. Somewhere in a quiet corner of the jungle, a priest lights incense and glances skyward, not for answers, but for harmony. Time flows, destiny circles, and the gods, as always, are watching. Imagine yourself walking beneath the towering pyramids of Maya City, perhaps Tikal, Palenque, or Copan. The jungle air is heavy with the scent of wet leaves and burning copal incense. As you pass beneath the shadows of carved stone lintels, you catch a glimpse of a ruler's face, preserved in a glyph or frieze, half human, half divine. Among the Maya, the distinction between priest, prophet, and king was often blurred. Their rulers were not merely political leaders. They were conduits of the gods, interpreters of cosmic signs, and custodians of sacred time. To rule was to read the heavens. The Maya concept of divine kingship, sometimes referred to as a Kuhulajaw, literally Holy Lord, was rooted in the belief that the king was chosen not by birth alone, but by celestial favor. His legitimacy was tied to prophecy, ritual, and celestial events. Imagine the coronation of a young Maya ruler. The day has been chosen by careful study of the Tzolk'in. Venus has appeared on the eastern horizon, a sign of renewal. The priest kings gather before the Great Pyramid. The incense curls upward. Drums begin to echo across the plaza. As the new ruler steps forward, he is not merely accepting power. He is becoming a vessel of time itself. His name, his deeds, and even his thoughts are believed to be tied to the stars. Maya inscriptions, carved into stone stele and painted in codices, frequently link political events with astronomical occurrences. A royal marriage might coincide with an eclipse. A military campaign might launch at the rising of Venus. A king's birth might be tied to a rare planetary conjunction. These were not coincidences. These were cosmic validations, signs that the king's rule was destined, fated, and sacred. And when things went wrong, when droughts came or cities fell, it was not simply a failure of politics. It was a cosmic imbalance, a warning from the gods. Prophets, known as Chilon, played a crucial role in interpreting such signs. They were trained to understand dreams, omens, and celestial behavior. They could advise rulers, sanction rituals, and even predict the downfall of dynasties. Some Chilon were also sacred scribes, creating codices that blended astronomy, history, and prophecy. They documented star charts, rituals, genealogies, and warnings. One of the most evocative surviving codices, the Dresden Codex, includes eclipse tables, Venus cycles, and flood predictions, all laid out in vivid hieroglyphs. It was likely created by such a prophet priest, preserved over centuries, and carried through conquest and silence. Imagine a Chilon consulting such a codex in candlelight, searching for meaning in the convergence of signs. Perhaps he warns a king of an ill omen. Perhaps he declares that the gods must be appeased. The balance must be restored. In many Maya cities, these warnings were heeded with elaborate rituals. blood offerings, feasts, and dances. The king would take part personally, offering his own blood as a sacred gift, a renewal of his bond with the divine. In this world, the political was never separate from the sacred. To lead was to align one's will with the stars. To lose favor with the gods was to invite ruin. And so, the Maya kings ruled with eyes always on the heavens. Their temples were built to mirror constellations. Their calendars were marked with prophecy. Their rule was a performance of cosmic balance, an eternal dance with destiny. As you lie back now, imagine the soft sound of drums echoing across a stone plaza. A fire crackles. A priest whispers into the king's ear. Overhead, Venus glimmers faintly in the eastern sky. The gods are speaking, and the king's listening. The night sky stretches out, quiet and eternal. Imagine looking up from a clearing deep in the rainforest, the Milky Way arcing overhead like a luminous bridge. In ancient Maya belief, that glowing band was more than starlight. It was the backbone of the sky, a celestial serpent and a path between worlds. The Maya did not see time as a straight line. For them, time was a wheel, a cycle, predictable and repeating, shaped by rhythms written in the heavens. At the center of their most powerful calendar system was the long count, a numerical calendar designed to track enormous spans of time, counting the days from a mythical creation date thought to be in 3114 BCE. This count, structured in units like baktons, katuns, and tons, allowed Maya priests and scribes to track sacred moments far into the past and deep into the future. One bakton equaled approximately 394 years. 13 baktons made up one great cycle, roughly 5,125 years. And so, when the 13th bakton came to an end in December of 2012, many wondered, what did it mean? Would something happen? Would the world end? In the modern imagination, this date became a symbol of doomsday, a misunderstanding born of mystery, curiosity, and perhaps a touch of fear. But to the ancient Maya, the end of a bakton wasn't catastrophe. It was a cosmic reset. Imagine the clock striking midnight on New Year's Eve. The moment is significant, symbolic, and deeply rooted in tradition. But it's not the end. It's a turning of the wheel. That's how the Maya viewed 2012. Not as an end, but as a beginning. In fact, some inscriptions, such as those at Tortuguero, hint at future dates far beyond 2012. The Maya were capable of calculating dates millions of years into the future. Their world didn't end, it turned. The widespread interpretation of the 2012 prophecy as an apocalypse was shaped largely by modern anxieties, media narratives, and mistranslations of ancient texts. The Maya themselves and their descendants never believed in a fiery end. Instead, they believed in continuity, in renewal, and in the quiet return of cycles. The Dresden Codex, one of the few surviving Maya books, contains detailed eclipse predictions and planetary cycles, but no mention of apocalyptic destruction. It speaks more to balance, to recalibration, an echo of their deep respect for cosmic harmony. For the Maya, prophecy wasn't about disaster, it was about preparation. Not fear, but flow. Even the ball game, one of their central cultural rituals, reflected this idea. Two teams competed, often representing night and day, life and death, dry season and rain. The game wasn't about victory. It was about maintaining the cosmic rhythm. The same is true of their calendars. So when the 13th bakton ended, Maya communities held ceremonies not in mourning, but in celebration. Fires were lit, offerings made, and prayers whispered under the stars. The gods had not abandoned the world. Time had simply begun again. And in this, perhaps, there's comfort. The wheel turns. The stars shift. The sacred count continues. As you listen now, imagine that moment in 2012, not filled with fear, but peace. A dawn breaking over Yucatan temples. Priests gathered in white, smoke rising in spirals. No explosions, no collapse, just the beginning of another circle. Another round of the sacred dance. And as the gods watched above, the world kept spinning gently as always. As the mist settles over the once grand plazas and vine-covered pyramids of the Maya lowlands, silence tells its own story. The stone cities still stand, some crumbling, others reclaimed by jungle, but the voices that once filled them have faded. Still, their echoes linger. For many centuries, scholars and travelers alike have asked the same question. What happened to the Maya? The fall of the classic Maya civilization remains one of history's quietest disappearances. There was no singular cataclysm, no invading horde to burn the cities to ash. Instead, the decline was gradual, an unraveling, not a collapse. Imagine yourself walking through the dense green of the Petun jungle. You step over fallen stones, once grand steps. Saber trees grow where marketplaces once bustled. And overhead, the call of birds replaces the clatter of city life. The decline began around the 8th and 9th century CE, when many of the great southern lowland cities, Copan, Tikal, Palenque, saw a steep drop in monument carving and elite construction. Stele that once proudly recorded the names of kings ceased to appear. Ceremonial plazas grew quiet. So why? Historians and archaeologists believe that the Maya decline was caused by a tangle of factors, each compounding the other like roots beneath the jungle floor. One major cause may have been environmental stress. The classic Maya relied on slash-and-burn agriculture and dense populations in cities surrounded by farmland. As the forests were cleared, soil quality may have diminished. Prolonged droughts, confirmed through modern paleoclimatology, exacerbated water shortages and disrupted farming. Imagine the slow anxiety of watching the sacred cenotes drop inch by inch. The gods, once so generous with rain, had grown quiet. But environment alone does not explain the full picture. Political fragmentation also played a role. The Maya were never a single empire, but rather a collection of city-states, each ruled by its own dynasty, often in competition with its neighbors. As resources grew scarce, wars may have intensified. Trade routes were disrupted. Rulers lost prestige, and with them, their ability to maintain cosmic order. When a king could no longer summon rain, he lost more than power. He lost divine favor. And then there was overpopulation. Cities may simply have grown too large, too fast for their environment to sustain. Social unrest could follow. Perhaps people walked away, leaving behind the towering temples for quieter forested lands. Still, the Maya did not vanish. Even after the decline of the classic cities, other centers, like Chichen Itza, Uxmal, and Mayapan, rose in the north. These post-classic cities adapted, shifting trade routes, rituals, and architectural styles. They embraced new influences from the Toltecs and others. And long after the final city fell silent, the Maya people lived on. To this day, millions of Maya descendants inhabit southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. They speak dozens of Maya languages. They keep calendars. They pass on stories. In small villages, ceremonies are still held on mountaintops. Elders burn incense and speak to the ancestors. Daykeepers still count time using ancient glyphs. The prophecies have not ended. They are whispered now, gently, respectfully. Modern archaeology, too, is helping uncover more than ruins. It is restoring memory. Through LiDAR technology, long-lost cities hidden beneath forest canopies are being mapped with incredible precision. New stele are being translated. Ancient texts are revealing deeper cosmologies, more kings, more histories. Imagine the satisfaction of a modern Maya archaeologist reading the glyphs of her ancestors, connecting time across centuries. So, no, the Maya did not fall. They changed. They adapted. They endured. and they endure still. Even as the mighty temples of the classic Maya faded into the jungle, their knowledge did not vanish. It traveled quietly on the tongues of storytellers and the hands of scribes, and across generations of Maya people who continued to count days, speak glyphs, and observe the sky. Imagine a grandmother in a Yucatan village, sitting in the shade of a ceiba tree. She speaks to her grandson in Yucatec Maya, gently explaining the name of today's sacred day on the calendar. She lights a small fire and offers a pinch of corn to the earth. This is not a museum. This is a memory, alive and moving. There are more than 30 modern Maya languages, still spoken across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. Each one carries with it stories, prayers, and fragments of ancient knowledge. The calendar, too, has survived. While the long count may no longer guide state rituals that soak in, the 260-day sacred calendar is still used by traditional daykeepers in many Maya communities. This calendar links each day to specific energies, gods, and natural cycles. It guides farming ceremonies and even naming of children. Imagine waking up and asking not just what day it is, but what spirit that day carries. Perhaps today has been associated with reeds and growth, or Chiction, linked to serpents and strength. In highland Guatemala, Ajkajab, traditional calendar priests are still consulted for guidance. They perform fire ceremonies, make offerings to the mountain spirits, and interpret dreams using the calendar. They are, in many ways, heirs of the ancient Chilan prophets. Much of what we now know about ancient Maya writing and cosmology has also been recovered, preserved, and revived, a process that's taken centuries and continues today. In the 16th century, during the Spanish conquest, many Maya texts were destroyed, burned by missionaries who misunderstood their significance. But a few codices survived, hidden away, or preserved in European collections. The Dresden Codex, Madrid Codex, and Paris Codex are three such precious remnants. They contain pages of hieroglyphs, star charts, gods, and rituals. These ancient books were once read by priests and astronomers by candlelight. Now they are studied by scholars and artists around the world. Deciphering the Maya script has been a long and patient effort, led not just by foreign archaeologists, but increasingly by indigenous Maya linguists and historians. Their efforts are reconnecting modern communities with a writing system that once seemed lost. Children in some schools in Chiapas and Yucatan now learn to read basic glyphs. Artists decorate murals with ancient signs. There's pride, not just in what was, but in what still is. This revival is not merely academic. It's spiritual, cultural, personal. It's a quiet defiance of centuries of silencing. The Maya creation story, the Popol Vuh, once whispered in secret, is now published and performed. It tells of twins and gods, of darkness and dawn, of trials and transformation. Like the Maya people themselves, it is a story of survival. So when we speak of ancient knowledge, let us not imagine it as buried beneath stone. Let us see it walking through cornfields, singing in markets, and praying beneath the stars. The Maya did not disappear. Their knowledge was never lost. It was simply carried through storms, silence, and time by those who remembered. And now, you remember too. Imagine yourself once more beneath the wide, open sky. The jungle is quiet now, the stars flickering like embers overhead. You lie on your back on cool stone, the remains of an old pyramid beneath you, and look up at the same constellations the Maya once watched. The same sky, the same stories. Everything moves in cycles. The Maya understood this deeply, not just in how they farmed or tracked the stars, but in how they saw life itself, from seed to sprout, from sun to shadow, from rise to fall and to rise again. And now, as we close this story, the story of civilization that never truly disappeared, we return to where we began, the rhythm of the heavens, For the Maya, the stars weren't just distant lights. They were active participants in human life. They told time. They marked destinies. They reminded us of our place in the universe, not as rulers, but as part of the great pattern. Even today, the ecliptic path, that invisible line across the sky the sun and planets follow, is called the White Road in Maya cosmology. It mirrors the sacred roads, or Sakbiab, the Maya built on Earth, bright limestone pathways connecting cities, temples, and the living to the divine. And so, the sky was their mirror, their map, their memory. As we drift slowly through the final chapter of this tale, let the wisdom of the Maya guide your own thoughts into stillness. The notion that time doesn't end, it simply turns. That endings are beginnings in disguise. That what was once lost can return. That stories, like stars, always find their way back into view. So many things about the Maya remain wrapped in mystery. How did they engineer such vast cities? What secrets do their glyphs still hold? What dreams stirred in the minds of their astronomers as they watched the heavens from stone observatories? We may never know it all, and perhaps we don't need to. What we can take with us into our own quiet moments, into sleep, is the sense of perspective the Maya left behind. That we are part of something ancient and beautiful and turning. That the stars above are not indifferent, but familiar. That knowledge, once gained, is never truly gone. And that even the deepest silence carries the echoes of those who came before. So now, as the night deepens and your breath softens, allow your thoughts to quiet. Let the rhythm of the story dissolve into gentle silence. Let the stars cradle your dreams. Let the ancestors keep watch. And let sleep take you, peacefully, patiently, into the next cycle. And now, dear listener, we've reached the end of our quiet voyage, a slow and steady drift of the rise and fall of the Maya civilization. From the misty beginnings in the jungles of Mesoamerica to the sophisticated cities of stone and stars, from the whispers of prophecy to the deep silence of decline, we've wandered gently through time together. If you're still awake, perhaps your breath is slowed, your muscles soften, and your thoughts drift like clouds in the evening sky. If so, this may be the perfect moment to rest. But if you're still listening, eyes fluttering, mind halfway between memory and dream, here is one last thought to carry with you. The Maya believed that time was not a straight path, but a circle. That each dawn followed each dusk. That each ending was another beginning waiting to unfold. In this way, history itself becomes a kind of lullaby, a song of seasons, rising and fading, never truly lost. So tonight, as you close your eyes, think of the stars above, quietly guiding travelers, just as they guided the Maya long ago. Think of calendars made not to constrain, but to connect. Think of glyphs as stories carved not just into stone, but into time. And remember, somewhere in the vastness of the jungle, beneath vines and moss, the great cities still dream. Their temples still face the stars. And their stories, passed gently through time, still find ears to hear them, yours among them. Thank you for spending this quiet hour with the sleepy historian. If this kind of storytelling helps you rest, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it truly brings you peace. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is it there? It's strangely comforting to know who else is out there, falling asleep to the same old stories, beneath the same old stars. So dim the lights, let the gods whisper, let the myths unfold, and sleep well. Until next time.